Hello everybody, here it is Talking Trades at 7 AFL. New set, new me, Tommy Browne. Interesting day, more probably jostling than anything else when it comes to deals. We'll get to the only official deal done, but what are you going to work on today?
Cam, you know it's heating up when we're back in the boardroom.
Oh,
just up the ante a little bit.
Yeah, of course, the home of the armchair experts as well. I've got to throw that in as well. What do you got?
In terms of significant news this afternoon, Collingwood's made a massive bid for Dane Beams. It's ridgy-dig, it's serious. I'll explain why shortly. I'll also explain why Melbourne's still potentially in the race for Stephen May. I've spoken one-on-one with his manager this afternoon. He's sort of a bit of a forgotten big name of this trade period as well. We've also got some significant other news as well, so lots coming up, Cam, to discuss.
The only official trade that has been confirmed today, Sam Lloyd has been traded to the Western Bulldogs for pick 64, and probably a little periphery squeeze out, whereas Conker, of course, left as a free agent on the back of Tom Lynch being, of course, given a pretty nice contract at Punt Road, but Lloyd, a Western Bulldog for 2019 and beyond. But we will start with the Neil Hogan, leading to the Beam, Stephen May story. They all linked, but we'll start with Lachie Neale.
Well, Lachie Neale's creating a bit of a logjam in the trade period. We've known that for several days. Just to explain, as we've explained over the last week, just to explain it really clearly, obviously Lachie Neale wants to get to Brisbane in exchange for pick 5 and something more. Fremantle want pick 5 and probably a second round pick. So that's obviously creating a logjam. It means that Jesse Hogan can't get to Fremantle, although as we know from Friday, apparently Fremantle don't want Jesse Hogan. I'll get to that shortly. That in turn affects Stephen May's ability to get to Melbourne. And also in terms of Brisbane, well, they're not going to want to give up Dane Beams unless they get Lachie Neale in. Remember, at the start of the trade period, they would have thought with Zorko in the middle, with Beams and Neale, they're probably a contender with natural improvement to perhaps make the 8, if not next year, the year after. Chris Fagan would have thought we're cooking with gas.
No doubt.
But now he's in a situation where if they can't get Neale and Beams leaves, well, that's an unacceptable situation. They'd have to insist that Beams stays. So everything's riding on the Neale situation. I think the biggest hint that the Neale situation has progressed, we've got today, is the fact that there's real talks now on Dane Beams. But before we get to Beams, let's discuss the Hogan situation. I'm trying to get visibility this afternoon on whether these Hogan talks have started again. Now, we know that Fremantle, through Peter Bell, painted themselves into a bit of a corner on Friday. Look, at the end of the day, Fremantle need Jesse Hogan. They've quartered Jesse Hogan. His manager has been over in Bali on the weekend seeing Hogan with respect to his future. Melbourne making it pretty clear over the weekend saying, well, you know what? We're a strong club. Don't worry about us. Let's think about Hogan here. He's been dudded by Fremantle. And in any case, we're happy for Jesse to play next year. We'll have a tilted flag. I think Jay Clark even flagging in the Herald Sun said that he might play in defence, which he'd be very good at.
Genius by Melbourne. I think he might be okay, but he's a natural forward. He's always played forward, so always leak to the media that you're going to put a guy who likes playing forward down back, maybe give a little push and a shove to look somewhere else where he will be a forward. This is the weird thing about this. I didn't mind, and we spoke about with Peter Bell on that unique statement on Friday. It's unique from an AFL perspective. I'm not going to sit here and say that Peter Bell's doing the wrong or right thing, but traditionally you don't see that 5 days out from the trade deadline. The thing that's interesting the most is that they all say, but if Lachie Neale doesn't leave, yeah, we want him playing for our football club. Brisbane Lions say the same thing about Dane Beams, same thing about Jesse Hogan. Stephen May, as you said, sort of been the forgotten man because as it stands right now, there hasn't been officially a trade request go in, yet he's 48 hours away from remaining a Sun for another 12 months, and what is his free agency year? So all the clubs are posturing, and they're all saying, yeah, we're happy to have the guy back, which, well, they should be because they signed the contract and the player will play. But it is an interesting one because you only need one of these to fall, Tommy. If one of these falls, if Beams gets done to Collingwood, and Paul Connors, his manager, spoke fairly openly this morning as well at a breakfast and on NAB Trade Radio, without saying that he wants to leave the Brisbane Lions, but if it happens, it'll be a domino effect.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get to Beams shortly. One of the most interesting things with respect to Hogan today, though, is that Cam likes to just navigate his way around the coffee shops around Richmond and East Melbourne. And I think you might have seen my man Ross Lyon in East Melbourne. Is that right?
Yeah, Ross Lyon was walking out.
What did he tell you?
Cafe.
Well, I would have rushed there with the crew.
He said, mate, you got to dress up. You got to stop wearing T-shirts on Talking Trades. Hence why I'm in a shirt today. It's the only thing he said to me. I said, do you have any other comment, Ross? He goes, you dress up and I'll take care of the Dockers. So I said, that's fine with me, Ross.
Well, we know Ross is keen to keep Neale and perhaps lukewarm on Hogan, but I need to track down Ross. So if you're listening, Ross, I would like to do an interview in the next 24 hours, hopefully one-on-one for 7 News. There
is a really good narrative that came out over the course of the weekend, and it's a really good question. I see Sam McClure has posed it in a couple of different avenues as well. When it comes to Peter Bell and the stance he is making, now, for the last 4 years, there's been no Fremantle docker who's kicked more than 40 goals. They're crying out for a forward, and Matthew Pavlich and even Modra, even though he was in the twilight of his career, have been the only two superstar forwards of the football club in its 20-year history. Last year, I think it might have been McCarthy with 25 goals, or maybe even 22 goals, who actually led Fremantle Dockers goal kicking. They are crying out for a forward. Now, they're well and truly, they are within their own rights to make a stand. But if they're going through next year and kicking 5 goals in games, and they're talking desperately about the fact they haven't got a key forward, that's when their fans might in fact turn on them and say, well, hang on, we had an opportunity to have a 10-year forward, and maybe we should have paid slightly over to get Jesse Hogan in, because it's going to be hard to sell it if you turn your back on Jesse Hogan in this case.
They could still, Cam, get Jesse Hogan.
I think they will.
You can't criticise Fremantle for reneging on the Hogan deal for essentially, I suspect, the same reasons as Melbourne secretly wanting to go.
I'm not criticising Peter Bell for making a stand. I'm
Yeah.
just suggesting it's done differently. You never see a club do that 5 days
There's
out.
massive anger at Fremantle, and it's going to affect their relationship with TLA, which is arguably the most influential management firm.
Well, clubs shouldn't
Paul
worry about
Connors.
that, because they've got to make a stand for their football club and what they believe to be the best
Well,
thing. Now,
they should, what's going to happen to Andrew Brayshaw? They'll get him back, TLA. They're tough.
but
They know
you're
what
still
they're doing.
suggesting that Jesse Hogan could still end up at the Fremantle Dockers.
He
So
could.
they will always look after the best interests of their players. So the Fremantle, and no sporting club should just bend down or bow over just because a management group might be unhappy. Now, it's a
Jesse
weird
also
thing.
had some personal issues which have been well documented. So I think to leave him out on the lurch on Friday was probably a bit unfair as well. Having said that, as has been raised, I think in one article today, Jesse might have some more knowledge of this situation than perhaps we realise. So there might be a bit more.
Hashtag talking trades to get involved. Let's get to Dane Beams, because Paul Connors, as I touched on, spoke fairly openly today, and there has been a deal from the guy from the Collingwood Football Club to the Lions.
Okay, so some key points on this. It developed this morning when Paul Connors basically put on record at a breakfast, his own breakfast, sponsored by Paul Connors, that Dane Beams wants to get to Collingwood and put it on Collingwood to come up with an amenable deal to Brisbane. Now, I thought to myself, Collingwood could just fox around this until Wednesday, sit back and say, well, we think Dane really wants to come to us, so it's really up to Paul to come up with a deal. No, Collingwood's got on the front foot. What does that mean? It means, and I'll explain what their offer is shortly, but it means Collingwood think Beams is a key to potentially winning a flag. I think there's been dialogue with Beams in some shape, fashion or form for some time. He's been telling socially, people in Melbourne, for at least a month that he's back. He hasn't got much of an intention of going back to Brisbane. He'll go back to Brisbane if he has to earn his money, don't get me wrong. But what it shows is that Collingwood, from a list management direction, has put put itself on the line today. They've offered a first round pick, which is pick 18, and a future second round pick, which at this stage Brisbane has rejected. But I think my information is that a first round pick this year, a first round pick next year, in exchange for Brisbane's second pick, and remember Collingwood should finish up the ladder, Brisbane down. I think that deal could get it done. It'll probably happen in the depths of trade period Wednesday night. But this deal is a lot closer than we expected this morning.
I actually don't mind from what Paul Connors spoke about today. He said, and look, they haven't requested a trade, so they haven't made it untenable. Well, he said to Collingwood, essentially, if you really want Dane Beams, he's there if you want to put something together and go chase a player. Very rarely do you see a manager or a club say, we're going to try and go and get this guy because we think he can help us win a premiership. And if I'm the Pies, and I thought about this over the weekend, if I'm the Pies right now, you may pay, because of his age, if 2 first rounders, but you are so close to a flag, you got Langdon locked in, so Stephen May is essentially off the table when it comes to a defensive structure. You go and pay a little more, maybe overs for a guy of his age, to get him back in if they believe they can win a premiership, because premierships are very few and far between.
How does Brisbane win out of this? They're going from a situation where they thought they were going to get Beams and also Neil to a situation where they're not going to have Beams, and clearly Chris Fagan's in the window.
They will not lose Beams if Lockie Neal's not locked in.
That's correct.
They won't. It'll be a principle thing. So in principle, so they'll say to Collingwood, and whatever Collingwood offer, Brisbane will say, okay, hey, Steve Rossich or Peter Bale or Ross Lyon, whoever it might be, this is what we're going to have in a matter of moments. We're about to sign off on this. This is what we're going to offer you. Do the deal. Lockie Neal's coming to your football club, and then Jesse Hogan will end up at the Fremantle Dockers. I think it'll all play out. But it is dependent somewhat on the team that lost the grand final by 5 points.
Yeah, if I was still Brisbane, I'd still be tempted just to sort of hold the line until, well, they'll hold the line until late.
Dane Beams is a little bit older than Lockie Neal. They may believe, and I'm not saying Dane Beams won't be there for next premiership at the Lions, because it's the biggest myth in football. Won't be there for the next flag, so we've got to trade him out. It's,
I don't think he will be his age, though.
Well, you know what? Say that to Dale Morris and, to Basher Hooley and Sean Grigg, guys who were probably
How old's
lumped
Beams?
in a
28?
similar type of myth. About 28, 29.
Yeah.
So you're right. He's a little bit older than what Lachie Neale is. And Brisbane are expected to continue to thrive in the next 2 or 3 years under Chris Fagan. But they might say to themselves, even though we'll lose Dane Beams, we're going to have Lachie Neale and we have another first rounder thrown in, it might work us a little bit longer for the
Now,
team.
where does all that leave Stephen May? I spoke to his manager this afternoon, Alex McDonald. It was actually ironic. I usually look around for him all over the city. He's having lunch opposite Channel 7.
Oh, jeez.
Half my luck.
Yeah.
And he flagged that the deal could still get done with Melbourne and could still get done with Collingwood.
Has he requested a trade or not?
He hasn't formally requested
Is
a
this-
trade.
is
It's
this
like
the-
the Bain.
Is this the
new
new way?
modern-
Is this the new way of trade period we'll see for years to come? No one officially requests
you
trades.
can wander around
but the
Melbourne
discussions are
talking
happening.
about to
Yeah,
clubs with the
okay.
permission of your own
I
club.
don't mind it.
It's not a bad situation. So he said that Collingwood situation is still an option, but I can't see for the life of me how Collingwood could get the May deal done now. Melbourne could be working on something in the background, but remember the Suns will get compensation in the form of probably pick 2 if they finish on the bottom of the ladder next year. So I wouldn't be surprised if May stays.
Suns
But
are in no.
the latest man
I
at
don't
6
think
o'clock.
Suns are in any rush to get rid of him.
You
They're a
know,
better team with him because he plays that defensive structure.
The only thing I'll say to that on Stuart Dew, he's sick of having blokes around the club that don't want to be there. He wants to draw a line in the sand, get everyone on board that wants to be there and move forward.
Okay, well, that also, because he's almost essentially starting a football club again, so I can see
Correct.
the culture from that point of view. Just on Ryan Burton, who's in Vegas, trying to enjoy the season trip, but he's got Port Adelaide Medicos on the way to see him and check that badly broken leg that he had in his draft year in 2014. What's the latest there?
Well, Port says Hawthorn threw up Burton. My Hawthorn sources over the weekend insist that Port threw up Burton. Either way, he's in the same situation. He's on the table, so to speak, probably at a Las Vegas medical clinic this afternoon, having a medical conducted by Port Adelaide officials that have flown over there on the weekend to conduct that. It all, of course, relates to the Wingard deal. There's still argy-bargy going on there. Hawthorn also trying to finalise the Scully deal. I think the Scully deal will get done, although it is going a little bit slower than anticipated. It should be right, though.
Now, at Brad Turich asking us on Twitter, when will the Jordan Roughhead deal get done to the Pies? You flagged it on Friday. Looks like it's going to happen. Will it definitely happen?
Sorry, Jordan Roughhead deal was done, in essence, on Friday night. It's been done. It's just a matter of when Collingwood announce it. It could be this afternoon, it could be tomorrow, could be Wednesday. It's just a case of the announcement.
Tim Kelly update, asked Chelsea on Twitter.
Tim Kelly's situation is interesting. My information over the weekend was that, of course, I revealed on our news on Friday night that Fremantle threw up pick 11 for Tim Kelly, despite the fact that he doesn't want to go there, which is a strange situation in itself. They prioritised Kelly over, for example, the Lobb deal and the Hogan deal. But I think Kelly will get to West Coast, is my hunch. There's still some argy-bargy to go there, but I think he'll get to West Coast.
I see also he doubled down his manager over the course of the weekend.
What did he do there?
He doesn't want to, again, he reiterated that
Yeah.
Tim Kelly doesn't want to play for the Dockers.
It doesn't speak volumes for the Dockers. You should have taken it up with your mate Ross Lyon at East Melbourne today.
At Luke Steele asks us, are the Saints going to do anything? Of course, Dan Hanbury done last week. Will they expect anything more from the Saints?
I
No,
don't.
that's definitely the Swans. I just can't read what Mel is. Will the Swans do anything else? I apologise.
Not.
They lost Dan Hanbury.
They lost Dan Hanbury. Gary Rowan's gone to Geelong. They should have a little bit of extra salary money, but I don't think they're doing much as far as I can tell.
All right, Kane Corns raised. Hashtag talking Terry
Oh.
Child. He raised. I actually don't mind this idea.
Yeah.
That the AFL.
Is this the Scully one?
This is the Scully
This is
one.
ridiculous. It just shows. I like Kane Corns. I'm
Yeah.
having a go at him, but it
I
shows
actu-
a complete lack of knowledge about the situation.
I actually kind of understand a little bit where he's coming from because in the past, in other professional leagues, for the sake of equalisation where we sit right now,
Well, they step in.
if they're just going to, Chris Paul got stopped from going to Los Angeles Lakers because it was such an unfair trade.
Just
right?
explain. Hawthorn is set, as I revealed on Friday, to pick up Scully for a pick, say, in the early 50s.
54 is what's being suggested.
And Kane Corns
Yes.
has suggested the AFL should intervene. The first problem with that...
It is an incredibly, on the outset, it's an incredibly lopsided deal for a guy who was almost the best wingman in the game 12 months ago.
The first problem with
Yes.
that is that it suggests the Giants don't know what they're doing. Leon Cameron is one of the smartest. Look, you can debate whether he's a great coach or not. He's one of the smartest guys in footy. So
Yep.
the Giants list management team, Adrian Crusoe, there's a few of them guys, they know what they're doing. So at first glance, Kane's suggestion is ridiculous because the Giants guys know what they're doing. Secondly, you've really got to sit back and ask yourself, why would the Giants, and they offered this to other clubs last week, I can tell you, why would that's a fact. Why would the Giants offer up a good player in Scully, who's made all these accolades and all the rest of it, for a pick 50? It's
I agree.
because they are so concerned about his ankle and don't think they can fix it. Now, Hawthorn think they can fix it. So you start to think about cartilage, bone on bone. I'm not a doctor, but there's got to be significant problems with that ankle. He couldn't get it going all year. So this is not some accident that the Giants have thrown up this deal. It's the fact that they just want to get him off their books.
Who's going to pay the reported $500,000 that he's going to earn next year's salary? Hawks going to pay it all?
Yeah.
Geez, they must be 100%
I don't know
confident.
about all of it, but they'll have to pay most of it.
Yeah, true. Hey, hashtag Talking Trades at 7AFL to get involved. Our poll today between Neil, May, Scully and Beams. Who will leave a greater hole in the football club if they do in fact leave? 33 for Neil, 32 for May, 7 for Scully. So a lot of people out there suggesting that Tom Scully's foot is exactly what you just suggested there, and 28 for Beams. Who do you think makes or leaves the biggest hole?
May probably the Gold Coast. They are in a serious world of pain. The Gold Coast, they desperately need to get players in this draft that want to stay there, where they look at Western District kids, which Brisbane have had success with in terms of guys from the country that I think are a bit, I shouldn't use the word tougher, but they're more prepared to live away from home. They've got to put serious homework into who they get.
Now, Dylan Shield hasn't been done yet, but we expect it to be done, although a little argy-bargy from the Bombers. But you did break that Andrew Welsh, obviously Channel 7's own and former Bomber,
Property
was
guru,
instrumental.
creating his own suburb.
His own suburb, one of the most remarkable stories of all time.
Australians, he's on the young rich list.
Yep.
And obviously Dylan Shield wants to be a property developer, and Welsh took it upon himself to offer up his knowledge and expertise and how he networked as part of his footy career and leveraged off the back of that. And I think Shield was very impressed. So Carlton rolled out the big guns, so did Essendon. Essendon did nothing untoward. There's no deal or anything. But I think it's an area the AFL might have to look at down the track. A lot of these clubs are wheeling out. Clubs have always done this. They've done it since the start of footy. But a lot of clubs are wheeling out the heavy hitters as a means of enticing smart young footballers. I don't mind it. It's just footballers planning for the future. But Welsh, he gave up his time, came and got involved in that. Not involved in the deal, but just involved in pitching to Shield. There's a debate over the Shield deal. The Giants want 2 first-round picks. That's analogous to the Treloar situation, but remember Treloar became 7-7, where if you take a bullish view on Essendon next year, it's more like 9 and say 15 to 18. So maybe they'll have to swap a later pick back.
All right, hashtag Talking Trades. We're going to be back this time tomorrow. In the next 24 hours, what do you expect? Give me a prediction. Got a headline for me?
Yeah, I reckon the headline will be Fremantle re-engages on Hogan. It's like the dogfight in Top Gun when they go wandering off into the distance and they'll come back and I think was it Tom Cruise? You'll re-engage with the battle and have a go at getting. It's an interesting analogy, isn't it?
Thank you,
Do you like the?
I love Top Gun. I love Top Gun. Don't get me wrong.
They'll come back and re-engage the dogfight.
Just ask for a simple prediction. I didn't think you were going to talk to me about.
They'll get back on the page.
On that note, Talking Trades. We're done and dusted. We'll be back tomorrow for Fremantle fans. Hopefully, it's a good 24 hours. Hashtag Talking Trades at 7AFL to get involved. We'll see you tomorrow. What's up, guys?